Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. In this crash course, I'm going to show you how you can use Next.js with Strapi. Now this crash course is going to be in two videos. The first video, which you're watching right now, is going to be how to set up Strapi and how to deploy that out, including Heroku and cloudinary and everything like that ready to be used with a Next.js application. Then the second video will be only Next.js, so there'll be zero setup and we'll just get right into it and I'll show you how to make a blog using Strapi. Now, if you've already got Strapi set up and you're looking for Next.js, just skip this video and go to the other one. If you want the full experience, stick around as we dig into Strapi, how to deploy it and how to use it. So here we are in a git bash session in a directory of my choice, which happens to be my YouTube code directory. But obviously, wherever you want to make this Strapi backend, here is where you need to start. So from here, we're going to use Yarn to actually create a backend admin side of Strapi using a starter template, and also include some posts and some images and things like that in our development world. So what you first need to do from here is type the word yarn create, then Strapi app. Then you get to name it whatever you want. So in mine, I'm just going to use Strapi backend. Then we can use the words quick start, which will pre-populate a bunch of stuff for us. And then we can use the word template. And this template is essentially going to let us use something that's already been created by the Strapi team. And then you just need to give it the GitHub directory, which is https github.com/strapi/Strapi template block. And then when you hit enter, it's going to take a long time, depending on your system, to create all the files, get everything from Yarn, and spin up the directory. What will happen is it will launch Strapi in localhost for you at the beginning, and then that's when I'll meet you back here. So I'll see you in a few seconds. Right, hello, sorry to interrupt, but I just need to get this out here. 50% of you are not subscribed to the channel. That means you're missing out on content. So if you see a red button, click it and let's get on with the video. Okay, so you've waited around for Strapi to get set up and you'll now see this Strapi setup screen. Now, you're probably thinking to yourself, okay, let me set up my admin, my email, my confirmation. Let's get started. Well, I'm here to tell you, let's not do that because we want to set up some few other things before we even think about even looking at the admin screen. So go ahead, close this out. And once we've done that, let's go ahead and kill this server. And then let's cd into that directory. So cd Strapi backend, and then let's do an ls so we can see everything. So now we need to install a couple more things for our project. So first we need to install the cloudinary upload so that we can actually use cloudinary for our images. Now the reason behind this is when you deploy to something like Heroku, the images will not be stored there. So what happens is you'll upload an image and be like, oh yeah, it uploaded, great. And then you'll go to call that through the API and then you'll get nothing returned. And that's because Heroku doesn't actually store them. And then on top of that, when the app restarts, it's local. So if it does actually store those, it will delete them afterwards. And this is a common issue that I think people miss when they're using Strapi. So we're going to use cloudinary to take care of it. Obviously, you could use AWS if that's your preferred. But for this one, we'll just use cloudinary. Has a really huge free plan and it's really easy to set up. So from here, you can just do yarn add Strapi provider upload and then cloudinary and hit enter. And it will resolve that package, install it for us. And now we have cloudinary ready for us to be able to use it with Strapi. So the way that this kind of works is it essentially, when you do an upload through this Strapi admin, it goes and takes that and throws it into cloudinary so it's available there. And you can do some optimization if you want, so that you can call directly for a specific type of image, say the smallest, the biggest, whatever. We won't be doing that in this tutorial, but you could do that if you wanted to. So now we have that installed. At this point, we're ready to essentially add some code to our Strappy backend to allow us to use cloudinary as we go through this. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to open Visual Studio Code and I'll meet you there. So welcome to the Strappy backend. And in here is a bunch of components, modules, data, configuration files, extensions, etc. that Strappy sets up for you when we use the template that we did. So instead of having to worry about all this, we only have to worry about a few configuration changes to make it work the way we want. So inside of this config file, we're going to create a plugin.js. Now this plugin.js is going to handle our cloudinary functionality. So essentially what we're going to do is tell Strappy every time we upload a file, we actually want it to go to cloudinary and we want you to be able to access that data and give it back to us. So to do that, you're going to do module exports. And that's going to equal an environment here. And then inside of our function here, we're going to create a option here called upload. And this upload is going to take a provider. And this provider, in this instance, obviously, is going to be cloudinary. So cloudinary, that's not how you spell it, but you do spell it like that. Then we can offer provider options. Now these provider options are going to be everything that we need it to use. So we need a cloud name, and that comes from Cloudinary, and I'll show you where to get that in a second. And that environment is going to be cloudinary _name. Then we need an API key, and that is env.cloudinary _key. And then finally we need the API secret. And the API secret here is going to be cloudinary _secret. And hit save. So now every time Strappy gets an image from us, it will upload it directly to Cloudinary, or a video or a GIF or whatever you're using. It will upload it to Cloudinary, and Cloudinary will process it and allow us to access that in the future. So now we've done that, we should probably get these details and I'll let you know where they're found. So I'll meet you at the Cloudinary website and I'll show you exactly how to get this from them. So I've logged into my Cloudinary account, and in the top section of the dashboard, you'll see the cloud name, the API key here, and the API secret. So you can take these and copy them down onto Notepad or whatever you need, because we're going to need these in the future. So take that, put it somewhere safe, and we'll use it in the future. So now we've done the Cloudinary stuff, we just need to set it up ready for Heroku, and then we can deploy to Heroku and actually set up Strappy itself on the back end so that we're ready to use it for Next.js. So I'll meet you back in the code where we're going to make a few more changes to get it ready for Heroku. So the first thing we need to do is actually log into Heroku through the CLI. So first of all, you need to install the CLI. I'm not going to tell you how to do that because it's different for every environment. So if you're using Windows, it's a exe file or an MSI file. I believe you can use Brew for Mac and you can use Snap for Linux. But once you have that set, you need to log in first. So go ahead and type Heroku Login and hit enter. It's going to ask you to open your browser, so hit enter again. And it's going to ask you to log in. So go ahead, log in. It's going to tell you you're logged in and you can close this. So we can go ahead and close out of our application. And it's going to say you're logged in as whoever you're logged in as. So now we have ourselves logged in. We can now go back into our code for Visual Studio and install a few more things. So we have the application, but we also need to have Postgres as an option. So from here, you can just do yarn add pg and then pg-connection string and let that install. So we'll let that install and resolve all the packages. And then I'll meet you back after that's done. So we're back in the code again, and then we need to create a new folder here and the folder needs to be called env. And then inside of the environment, we can create a new file here for production. So we have an environment production and then a new file for that production called database.js. Now you see there's a database here, and then we have a database here, and this one just tells it what we want to use versus this just uses SQLite and temp data. But when we're in production, we actually want to be able to use a connection string from Heroku to do this for us. So first we need to actually import the path, and that's going to come from the PG connection string that we just installed a minute ago. Then we can do module.exports equals, and then we're going to pass in the env again. And then we're going to tell it exactly what we want to use. So we're going to use const, and we're going to destructure the environment database URL that we're going to use. So we need the host, we need the port, we need the database, we need the user and the password. And that's going to come from pass. So we're going to pass in the database URL. So it's going to be env database URL. And you're probably wondering where we're going to get this from. I'll explain that in a little bit. But just imagine that we have a database URL there. Then what we need to do is return all the data. So we're going to do a default connection. And that default connection is going to be the word default. Then we need the connections. And the first one we're going to do, obviously, is the default that we just said that we're going to use as always. And we need a connector. So the connector here is the word bookshelf. And then we need the settings that come along with that. So for settings, we're going to need to have the client. And the client here is Postgres, so it's just Postgres. And then we're going to take the host, port, database, username, and password and put that in. So you can just do that by doing host, port, we need database, and then we need username, and then that will be user, password, and then SSL, reject, unauthorized, false. And then underneath this section of settings here, we also need to just add a quick options here. And the option is just going to say SSL false. And then at that point, we hit save, and we'll let our wonderful Prettier take care of all the code. But let's just go through this one more time. So what we're doing is we're going to tell it that we're going to use this pass PG connection string, so Postgres connection string. We're going to destructure this and say, I want the host, the port, the database, the user, and the password. And we're going to pass that from the environmental variable called database URL, which is essentially going to have all this in it. Then we're going to create a default connection, and that default connection happens to be this one right here. So we're going to use the connector of bookshelf, and then we're going to have these settings, which is we're going to be using Postgres. Our host, port, database, user, and user password are all going to come from this URL. And then we're not going to reject unauthorized, and the options right now are false for SSL. So now we're actually ready at this point to deploy this whole thing to Heroku. So before we go any further, one thing we will want to do is go to our get ignore here, scroll down to the bottom, and we're going to add in our yarn.lock file here. So we can just do yarn.lock, hit save, so that we ignore this file as well as everything else. So what we need to do is init this after we've added the yarn lock. So you can just do get init, and then we can clear this back out, and then we can do Heroku create and hit enter. And what should happen here is it will create this right here. Here is the app name. here is the location, and here is the Git URL. We haven't actually done anything with this yet. So first, let's see if we can go to this website. So let's go ahead and open that up. And what we should see is, welcome to your new application. So let's close this back out so we know that it is running, but we need to add a few more things. So we need to add in the Postgres SQL add-on for Heroku. So you can do that by doing Heroku add-ons create Heroku Postgres SQL, and then we're going to tell it that we want the hobby version. So it's hobby dev, and then app is this app name. So it's Sleepy Gorge 49197. And we hit enter, and it's going to add this now to Heroku. So we now know that we've created this Postgres as the database URL. So now that we have that, we need to essentially add all of our code here. So what we can do is just do git, so Heroku, git remote a, and then the name of the app again, so Sleepy Gorge 49197. And then that will add it to make it look for that when we set the remote. So now we can actually add all our code. So if we do git add period, it will add all of the code that we've been working on here. So all of this, excluding the build, the node modules, the exports, this updater, and the yarn lock. And then you can just commit it. So if we do git commit am, and then just say initial commit and hit enter, we should get that, and it should add everything, and we can do, at that point, what we need to do is finish our setup here. So we can just do git Heroku push master and hit enter. Oh, we did that wrong. It's git push Heroku master. Git push Heroku master. And that should push everything up and start a deployment off. So once that's done, I'll meet you back on the other side. So that took an incredible amount of time, I'm sure, on your machine, but with the power of editing, it took 1 second for me. So one thing that we do need to add here for our production is actually telling Heroku that we want to use, essentially, when do we decide when to use production versus the localhost version. So what we're going to do here is create a new file here, and we're going to call it server.js. And it's essentially the same thing as this, except from it's going to be a little different. So we're going to do module exports. And again, just like all the other ones we've done so far, we're going to pass in an environment. And then we're going to just tell it URL is .env Heroku underscore URL and hit save. So before we commit this and make another build, I'll meet you on the Heroku side because we have a couple of extra things we need to add. So welcome to Heroku. Here's the platform. If you've not used it before, it's fairly basic and it tells you everything you need to know. So from here, you can see what resources you're using. So we have Heroku Postgres, and that's what we're using for a database. You can see how it's being deployed currently. And currently we're actually deploying through the CLI, but you could choose GitHub or a container registry or whatever you'd like if you'd prefer. But while we're really here is we need to add some configuration environmental variables here, so that our Heroku knows how to use cloudinary and also if it's production or if it's not. So when you click this button, it's going to reveal all the config files, and I'm going to blur this side of them out, but I want to make sure that we use all the ones we want. So we're going to need this Heroku URL, so go ahead and copy that. And this one I won't blur out, and it's just production. So we can just type the word production in there. Then we're going to need all our cloudinary ones. So I'm just going to click the add button here. And I'm just going to add all of them in. So once it's done, I'll meet you back here. So here we are. Everything's been added. So we've got our database URL, which was automatically there from before. Then we have the cloudinary key, the cloudinary name, the cloudinary secret that we referenced in our code. I put a node environment of production, and the Heroku URL I originally put in is actually the URL that the Heroku app is using. So it's just the name of the app plus herokuapp.com. So now that we have all of this, let's go back to our code and just add that one change, and then we should be good to go. So we're going to do get add, and then we're going to do get commit message, adding prod changes. Then we can just do get push Heroku master, and then let's let that deploy one more time, and I'll meet you back this time on our actual website, which will just be the Heroku URL/admin. So welcome to our Strappy admin. So first thing you need to do is set up your account. So go ahead and do that, and I'll meet you after you've hit let's start. So here we are in our Strappy admin side of things. So the first things that we really need to take care of is looking at these articles. You'll notice that the images are all broken, and all the ones in here are as well. So the media library is essentially broken. So what we can do here is delete all these files. And then once we've deleted all the files, we can upload the assets from the original directory. So just go ahead and browse to your file where you did your backend. And under public, upload should be all the images that we want to use. So let's just go ahead and hit open, and then hit upload 52 to the library, and those should all get uploaded, and then we'll be good to go. So once that's done, I'll meet you back in the media library where we can talk about how asset management actually works. So as you can see here, all of these have been uploaded to Strappy. So what you can do to make sure your cloudinary is working as expected, if you log into your cloudinary management console, it's really zoomed in from before, but let's just log in real quick and let's take a look at what is happening. So if you go to cloudinary and go to media library, for me there's going to be a lot of duplicates here, but you can see that all of these have now been uploaded, and we have doubles or triples. And if you select one of them, for example, this is one we just uploaded. There's a small version, a medium version, a large version, a thumbnail version, and the original. So we have all of those ready, and we can use them however we want. So the Strappy media library is working as expected. So one thing we need to do is change the homepage to have a better title. So let's just call this awesome blog for next. And then the meta description, we can call it whatever we want. So awesome blog about all things in the Jamstack. So we just have something. And then the share image is the default share image. So we'll just select one here. Let's make it this shrimp. That seems good to me. And then the title will be, James's blog. So now we have that. Let's hit save. So this is all updated. Then obviously we need a couple different things here. For example, the icon, the default one that they use. The share image, we'll make it a shrimp as well. And we'll just keep everything else the same and hit save. So now that's all set up. Let's look at these articles. So none of these articles have images because they weren't uploaded. So let's just go ahead and delete a few of these articles. So let's just delete 5 and 4 and 2. Let's just delete those out so that we have 3 here. And then let's make an image here. And the image for this one will be, as it's supposed to be the bug, we'll do the shrimp here. So let's find the original. Yep. And then hit save. So now we know that that works. And then let's do one for this pizza. Well, we'll just use the We Love Pizza. And then we'll hit save. And then finally, what's inside a black hole? We'll do what's inside the black hole. And that's why I'm using the default images. Obviously, if you're writing your own articles right out of the gate, that's fine. And then we'll just leave these categories as they are. There should be no users, and there'll be a couple of writers here, Sarah and David. So these are people at Strappy. So let's just put Sarah as the thumbnail here and hit save. And then David will also do as well. And then that will have everything sort of set up and ready to be used on the Next.js side of things. So let's just talk about a few things around how Strappy works. So the current version I'm using is version 3.5.3. Obviously, this gets updated and you will have to update it through Heroku. Also, the media library enable responsive friendly uploads. So basically, it just generates multiple versions of that asset. And then size optimization essentially lets you do what you need. So every time you write an article, you can just click this button and it works similar to WordPress or anything else you may have used. And then you give it a publish stat, a slug, and then what the status is, either draft or published. And then add your categories over here and obviously your author. You can add as many writers as you need. The categories you can change and chop and change how you feel. But overall, it's just a really nice looking CMS that works really, really well. So that's the end of the backend setup for Strappy. So if you finish this part, move on to the Next.js part, and I'll meet you over there where we'll just crank out the Next.js application, and we won't look at this as a whole at all going forward.